Welcome, one and all, to the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. A Thursday mailbag, Thursday headlines edition of this show because some news dropped today that I need to get into that is causing a lot of discourse, controversy on the internet. So AEW, the Dynamite ratings came out 622,000 in a .19 in the 18 to 49 demo. You may be asking yourself, Mike, why do you care? All right, let's go back a week. 609,000, .18 in the demo. So they did improve. They did improve. But the big excuse that has been coming away in the last 2 weeks is the Olympics are on. And that is drawing the attention away from Raw. Raw obviously had to move to Sci-Fi. But that's interesting that people bring that up because Raw did, this past week, did 1.73 million viewers on Sci-Fi during the Olympics and a .62. The week before that, 1.412 and a .51. And that was early in the Olympics. So it probably was a combination of, hey, compelling stuff from SummerSlam, and a lot of people wanted to see the show. And there was a heavy plug that Raw was going to be on Sci-Fi. And going back to AEW, Collision was moved up, and they did their worst number in the history of the show, and that's not by accident. So I don't want to hear this because I'm going to break down the quarters here in a second because this is the microcosm of what is wrong with AEW and why they have just completely lost any shred of a mainstream audience or any hope that they have, and they are clearly marketing to the online internet geeks that do not show that want to watch from their couch and will not show up to their events. Like the people that will occupy your show and buy tickets are like some of the casual fans. And that's why AEW is filling up a quarter of their arenas. So again, 622,000, they're up a little bit from last week, up a little bit in the 18 to 49. But here we go. So they start off the show with the Big Bang Theory lead-in. 822,000 viewers on the lead-in. Within 15 minutes of when the MJF Kyle Fletcher match started the show, they had already lost almost 100,000 viewers. Fast forward another 15 minutes, you lost another 100,000 viewers in that amount of time, which was Mariah May and Viva Van, and then the Tony Storm post angle, Jack Perry and that god awful promo, and then just a bunch of stuff here. You had the Shibata Brian Keith match. Darby Allin had a promo in there as well. So then you're down to 626 at that point. So you've already lost almost 200,000 viewers in 30 minutes. 200,000 viewers since that Big Bang Theory. Bear with me here. Then fast forward another 15 minutes and you go to 587. 587. So now you're dipping low there, and then so then you go from 8:45 to 9. Then another 15 minutes, you stay flat with the Swerve Strickland backstage interview and a bunch of other stuff with the Roderick Strong, Roosh, Beast Mortos versus FTR and Orange Cassidy. Then another 15 minutes goes by, and 564. You're down another 20,000 viewers. The only increase of the show followed that when this is weird. A marginal increase when you had Mercedes Moné and Britt Baker for their live promo, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. It was just that was just a train wreck of a segment, and Mercedes Moné has been getting a lot of negative heat on the internet, and I've been on that train for a couple months now, and how horrendously botched this whole rollout of her character, and the astonishingly just lack of interest from the crowd because of how poorly she has been booked, and we can debate how it was handled. But anyway, so going back there, so now at 9:30 to 9:45, 576. And then the main event happens with Bryan Danielson, maybe one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, going on his final run. One of the most beloved baby faces you can have. One of their top stars comes out against Jeff Jarrett, who, by the way, I think it's been a nice angle and arc that they've done with Jeff Jarrett, but Jeff Jarrett should not be main eventing shows in 2024. He's 57 years old. Like, you can't have that happening. I understand that there's kind of some level of a story there. That can't be the main event. That can't be the main event. If you're gonna do that match, do it to open the show. I mean, I understand Bryan Danielson's the main event, but you can't have Jeff Jarrett in the main event. That just can't happen. So Bryan Danielson and Jeff Jarrett This is the 9:45 Eastern to 10 o'clock hour. There's a little bit of an overrun. 535,000 people were watching. And then you get a 7-minute overrun, which leads to the post-match angle. Bryan wins, and then they tease the match next week with Wheeler Yuta, which, like I said, was a wet fart of an ending. It just did not register with me. And you're down to 516,000 viewers in that 7-minute overrun from 10 Eastern to 10:07 when the show went off the air. And then there's some post-match stuff that just really pissed me off, post-show stuff that just showed up on the internet, and I was like, oh, okay, you could have fit that in. If you're doing the math, if you were staying with me through this whole explanation, they started at 8:22 at 8 p.m. Eastern. At 10:07 Eastern time, they were off the air at 516,000 viewers. They lost 300,000 people in 2 hours. That is not the Olympics. That is your show sucks. And until AEW realizes that their show is not registering with the audience, because like I said, MJF has come on the screen virtually every single week since that promo, since the whole 1 hour match that I had a huge problem with the ending. So that is telling me that angle did not work. That idea did not work, and you wasted one of your top matches for All In by just doing it on free television, doing a bullshit finish just so you could do the match a month later. Because look at that. Within the entire storm of the match, you lost 100,000 people just in that 15 minutes. Just in that 15 minutes. And you lost 300,000 people within the next hour and a half. Okay? That is, you cannot, and you can't chalk it up to travel issues, because Tony Khan even said it, and maybe he was full of shit. And he said it on his Twitter. Hey, everybody who's booked for the show is here. So they didn't have to make changes, to my knowledge. And what they had there, honestly, having FTR on the show, I think was, I like Kyle O'Reilly and Mark Briscoe, but that was an upgrade, at least for that match, even though that match had zero heat to it. But like I said, the facts are the facts. The numbers are there. They don't lie, people. Because Raw increased on a different network by 300,000 viewers in the week since. And meanwhile, AEW went up, I think, 609, and I think it went up 13,000 up to 622. Again, this is not a Olympics or counter programming problem. This is your show sucks problem. And for AEW to have the level of talent on their roster and to have this inept of a number and just be in this big of a decline, it is alarming. And when you have Tony Khan coming out and basically saying everything's fine, everything's okay, and here we are on August 8th, and there's no television deal, and there's reports that there's been money lost by Warner Brothers Discovery, considering everything that happened with the NBA and them losing that next year. This is not going well. And until there is some positive news in the real world, rather than it just being hearsay from the boss who's clearly trying to do damage control because he knows his company is in free fall mode, until there is some realistic good news, like a TV deal or something, and maybe there will be some goodwill coming out All In, this company needs something. They need a spark. And you thought you saw it maybe a couple weeks ago with the MJF Will Ospreay match. Granted, I didn't like the finish, but clearly that did not do anything, because now you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, opening the show with MJF, and clearly people who are on the Big Bang Theory lead-in, they are shutting their televisions off when they see MJF on the screen. They don't want to watch him. And that's your top star. So what does that say about your company? Like, again, I'm just not going to have any of you trolls, you marks, you stans, or just you fanboys. If your company's doing so well, explain that to me. Explain that to me. When Raw, 300,000 more, they did 300,000 more people on Sci-Fi, not on USA, on Sci-Fi. And frankly, if Raw had been on USA last week, they would have done over 2 million people. And that would have been the first time in God knows how long that show has drawn 2 million people. Because Monday is a tough night to draw, especially during the football season. WWE's on a roll. And again, it goes back to some of this tribalistic stuff that I talked about post SummerSlam, with people just trying to screenshot and take photos of parts of Brown Stadium that were tarped off because of it was a television deal type, because of the way they structured the stage and they wanted more people to see it. And that was just going to make it a more fans were able to see it. And like, again, those parts wouldn't have been able to see the entranceway and a lot of key parts of the show. And they still drew 57,000 people in Cleveland. All in, let's go to ticket sales here first. All in just past 45,000 tickets for a show that is 17 days away. 17 days away. This show drew 80,000 people a year ago. They've had tickets on sale for almost the entire year, and they're going to draw probably at least 25% less than what they were drawing last year. That's your biggest indication. Your biggest show of the year is not even selling, is selling like 60% of what it did last year. And your ratings are in the tank. Your world champion, granted, has been booked a lot better. And then your top stars, let's talk about this for a second, because let's lead into my next point. Your top stars, Mercedes Moné, you brought in, had the huge rollout for her. Kazuchika Okada, huge rollout for him. Will Ospreay, huge rollout for him. Those are your three biggest stars that you brought in this year that we're going to reignite the feeling, or whatever it is they say, or restore the feeling. We're the best wrestler. So let's analyze these signings for a second while AEW is in complete free fall mode. Okay, let's start off with Will Ospreay. He's the best of the lot by far. Like, it's not even close. Will Ospreay has been presented very well. He's been in a world championship match. Every time he goes out there, he kills it in the ring. He's a fantastic wrestler. You could say what it is about his style. You may not like it, whatever, but he's one of the best wrestlers in the world, and he's been a great investment for this company. And every match that he has gone out there, he's delivered in. Whether it's against Lance Archer, which made no effing sense, or something like, and I'll be honest, he's actually held his own on the mic. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it because he hadn't really gotten into that style, but he's really come off as an authentic, really good babyface. And even though, like, you know, his English isn't great, because he's got like kind of like the English tongue, and like the bruv has gotten over, but the fans love him, even if there's not that many people in the building, and they've done a really good job with him. And it's not really hard to botch that because, like I said, it's one of the best wrestlers in the world. And like I said, every match he's done is delivered. Now let's get to Kazuchika Okada. I think he's been entertaining, but given what we know about Okada and considering how great of a wrestler he is, it looks like he is just going through the motions, and he is going at about 10 to 20%. He has not like even tried close to what he did in New Japan. Like, he is along for the ride. And granted, it is entertaining with the whole, you know, the weird smiling and the bitch and the saying bitch all the time, and then, like, you know, doing the CEO dance and getting nervous around Mercedes. Like, it's kind of good to see a character from him. But again, he's saddled in a group that nobody cares about, and he's being portrayed as pretty much a joke when that's the best wrestler in the world. So, I mean, and he's got like your third or fourth most important championship, which barely established. So, again, that's considering what they were rumored to pay him, and WWE was interested, but then they walked away from it when they saw what Tony Khan was offering. I think the number is like $4 million a year. You're paying a guy $4 million a year. You better be booked better than this. So, and then there's Mercedes Moné. I have made no secrets. I think Mercedes is one of the best female wrestlers I've ever seen. From an in-ring perspective, this woman is unbelievable. She is one of the biggest reasons why women's wrestling is where it's at. I have the utmost respect for everything that she has done for this business. But there also comes with a caveat here. All of the stuff that she has done in her career has been as Sasha Banks, the boss in WWE. And everything that we know about her, also she's walked out twice. She's got a bit of an ego. She's got an acting career going on. And it's just like, when you look at that and you look at what has happened since she showed up in March, we are now 5 months into this thing almost. It has been an unmitigated disaster. An unmitigated disaster. And I have said week after week, this woman cannot cut a promo. Everything that comes out of her mouth comes across as phony. When she was a babyface, it sucked. It registers a little bit better when she's a heel. But I saw so many people on the timeline retweeting her promo from last night with Britt Baker. It was an atrocity. Like, you just cannot listen to her with her catchphrases, and the crowd doesn't care. This is one of the people that everybody wanted to see show up and come back to wrestling after being gone for 2 years from North American television. She did some stuff in New Japan before she got hurt last year. It was such a big moment when they brought her in. And my God, in 5 months, she has become one of the most uninteresting and borderline unlikable parts of this product. It's getting to Chris Jericho territory. And I don't know if this is Tony Khan's fault, if this is Jen Pepperman, who they brought in to write for her, or this is Mercedes Moné getting all the money that she wants, all the creative control that she wants, and asserting her authority and doing all this. Because with a match as significant as Britt Baker versus Mercedes Moné for All in London, since the initial promo and the initial show up from Britt, this has been a dud of a feud, and this was not going to be that hard to book. Again, I voiced my my issue with the whole problem of Mercedes Moné and just these. I just can't get over it. Like, I voiced my issues with just how she can't stand. It's not easy to like her, and like even her wrestling style has not been there. But it's just like you give her all this money, you give her all this power, and this is what you get. And you've got these two big stars, and you book it at Comic-Con. That's the point that I was trying to get to, and I lost my train of thought there. I apologize. So you get to this point at Comic-Con where you just announce the match. Just announce the match. And maybe that was because Britt Baker was going to get suspended because of the backstage stuff, which again, that's also sunk this company. So, I mean, oh my goodness, man. Like, this is just, I don't get this. And I don't understand why it was so hard for AEW to just handle maybe the greatest female wrestler of all time. And, frankly, I think this is a product of, I think we're not giving WWE enough credit for how they handled Mercedes Moné. And maybe Vince McMahon, to a certain degree, was right in how he booked Mercedes Moné and Sasha Banks in proportion to Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Bayley. Like, she was not well thought of. And again, she had a higher opinion of herself, more power to her. She walked away. She got her bag. She went to another company. And look what's happening. The crowd's not interested in her promos. The crowd's not interested in what she's saying. The crowd's not, like, hell, the crowd turned on her in a match against Stephanie Vaquer, who went to another company right after it because she got over in the match and she didn't want to be in AEW. So you look at all of that, considering where we were 5 months ago. When she came in, there was a lot of momentum to potentially do this right off the heels of the Sting and Darby main event, the Sting's last match, and Swerve on his road to the World Championship, and all this momentum. And since that time, you've had AEW throw out footage that shouldn't have been aired, and that gave them their best rating, I think, of the calendar year. It's up there. And since that point, they have gone into the tubes. They got over 700,000 the last 2 weeks prior to this, but since then it has been a debacle, ladies and gentlemen. And there's no other way to pinpoint it than the 3 signings that you made are registering basically little to no impact. The only guy that has any real impact on this product right now is Will Ospreay. And okay, I mean you beat him twice. You beat him twice in the span of like 2 weeks. And I hope to God you don't beat him at all in. And I'm starting to get worried that you might do something screwy with Don Callis to advance this whole thing. Because look who he's feuding with. He's feuding with MJF. MJF's got a ton of creative say in that company too. And again, with him, that's your top star, has not evolved an ounce in 5 years. I've literally seen this whole thing, and now he's got this borderline MAGA gimmick with the American Championship and the American flag everywhere. He went to Mexico and insulted people there that was borderline racist. And I understand it's part of the gimmick, but it's like, dude, read the Times. Read the Times. Come on. Max, you're my Jewish brethren. Come on. Be better. And then here's another thing really that pissed me off, because I'm really just ranting here about AEW, because really that's the source of my mailbag and like what's on my mind in the news and notes. So after the show, AEW posted a promo to Twitter, to X, whatever you want to call it, and it was Jeff Jarrett being interviewed by Renee Paquette after the match with Bryan Danielson. He starts having his conversation. Hangman Page walks by him. Jeff Jarrett gets a hold of him, and they start beating each other up, and it's like it's backstage chaos. And I know it's like kind of just like, you know, like a little bit of a inside joke based on the backstage chaos that's been going on in that company. So as this is going on, you pan over to the other side, it's Mariah May and Tony Storm brawling with each other. All this chaos is going on backstage. That was 90 seconds. Why was that not on television? Why was that not on television? Because let's go back to one of my points that before when I started the show. It's become very evident that Tony Khan does not give a shit about the mainstream or like casual audience, which is crucial if you're trying to grow your brand. Because too often, and I go after these announcements on Twitter, too often there are announcements for matches on Rampage, there are announcements for matches on Dynamite that are strictly on Twitter, or there are digital exclusive promos. Like Hangman Page had a promo a couple weeks ago after Collision, after his big win over Jay White. That was fantastic. Not on television. Did not make television whatsoever. And then you have this backstage segment, which was, honest to God, one of the more interesting things that happened as a part of this show. You had a 7-minute overrun, and you couldn't fit that into 90 seconds of your show. The show that segment ran a minute 24. You had 90. You didn't have 90 seconds of airtime to put that on when that's at least something compelling, rather than the wet fart of an ending where you have Swerve Strickland challenging Wheeler Yuta. What are we doing? What are we doing? If Tony Khan is just going to keep running his mouth and being bitter about his company sinking into the toilet because his two biggest draws went to the other place and are now two big cornerstones in the reason why WWE is in the best period it has been probably since the Attitude Era, okay? He's pissed off and bitter about that because he could not take it from his ego that he wanted this to be his company. And now, because of all the shit that he's talked, and then Cody Rhodes walks out the door. CM Punk walks out the door. And then I know a lot of people are going to have their thoughts about CM Punk and how he handled himself in the whole Brawl In situation. Let's be clear. It's become as clear as day if you've listened to interviews, CM Punk did not want to come back to AEW after Brawl Out. He wanted out of there. It's been evident in the way he's talked about it. He wanted to move on. So Tony Khan went to TNT, went to Warner Brothers Discovery, and got another show strictly for him. And 2 months in, CM Punk gets fired from the show after he had his creative authority, was trying to give some advice to Jack Perry. And because Jack Perry didn't like it, and he's a smug bastard of a kid, and he's a punk-ass kid, and I like Jungle Boy, but then when he started showing this backstage side where because he's affiliated with the Elite and they like him, he could get away with whatever he wants. But because of that, it led to what happened in Wembley Stadium. And was CM Punk in the wrong for starting that thing? Yeah, absolutely. And under those grounds, he should have been fired. But it never should have gotten to that point. CM Punk did not want to be there. They already had one incident in that company, and that was never resolved whatsoever. The solution was you were going to put him on a separate show that was going to be on his end on another time, and nothing was ever squashed. And it led to more backstage drama. It led to people getting fired. It led to a bunch of petty bullshit where Tony Khan gets mad when CM Punk goes on somebody else's show and is asked a bunch of legitimate questions by a legitimate journalist in Ariel Helwani. And he gives a bunch of answers that you didn't like. So you go out there and air stock footage from 8 months prior. And it's just, this is why this company is in the toilet right now. They can't get over the fact that they had a boom period in 2021, early 2022. And then Cody Rhodes left and everything started to change. You've seen it from the minute that happens. A lot of things are different there. Tag team wrestling is not emphasized very well. The booking structure is very odd. How things have gone on television. Storylines are not as consistent as they were when Cody was there. And I don't know if that was a product of Cody was doing creative stuff. But there was much better stories in the early stages of AEW. There isn't as much anymore. There's more of an emphasis on, just in-ring work and just a bunch of nothing matches that have no, tie to the show whatsoever. So take that, and then you take what I've said, what I forecasted in, the first 5 or 6 minutes of the show, with a breakdown of each 15 minutes of this show yesterday. And like I said, from 8 p.m., to 10:07 in the 2 hours plus of this show, they lost 300,000 viewers. 300,000 viewers stopped watching it, and one of the best wrestlers of all time, Bryan Danielson, was performing in front of an audience of less than 600,000 people. It's great if you like the product. If it appeals to you, that's fine. But it is inarguable at this point that AEW is not even close. AEW is closer to TNA at this point. That's where they are. And until this company realizes what's going on and admits their faults, they're going to continue to fail. And again, until there is some sort of tangible announcement about a TV deal, rather than just a bunch of speculation and a bunch of hearsay, until there is a formal announcement, this is going to follow this company for a while. There's still going to be questions asked about it, and then the doubt is going to start creeping more in. Because, again, their exclusive negotiating window ended this past week. We are in early August. I don't know. I don't have an offhand of when this deal expires. I know they started in October of 2019. I'm assuming it's a 5-year deal, or it's like a 4-year with an option year that they picked up. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it's coming up soon. I mean, the end of the year is in 4 months. The end of the year is not far away. So you've got to do something at some point and have some sort of agreement announced. And I don't doubt that they're going to have some sort of agreement in place, but the longer this goes on, they're not going to get the number that they want. And I don't know if it's going to be on TNT or TBS at this point. They may have to stream it on Max or something like that. Or they may have to go to another network. The point is of this whole video and this whole show is, again, I've broken down for about almost 30 minutes here of just why this company is in such bad shape. And like I said, just from one episode, from what I just told you, and just how their top stars that they brought in have been booked, and how things have been handled, and the internet promos and all this other crap, and just, they got to figure something out, man. Like, they do, because if not, this company is going to die like WCW did. I think that there's still a room for them to stay. TNA tried to match WWE, and they got humiliated. They've still been able to last as Impact Wrestling. They're not nearly at the level that they were, but they're still going. So maybe that's the level that this company is, because until they admit that they're appealing to just a small internet niche audience who doesn't want to show up to their shows, doesn't want to pay these high prices to go to these events, and it's just not working. This company is ice cold. So that's it for this edition. Like I said, I really only spent the time on one topic. I tackled a few things in between. But this is really the biggest headline of the day in the wrestling world. And, we'll see, man. See if they can dig themselves out of it. I don't doubt that All In's going to be a good show. I think it's going to be fine. AEW really does find a way to consistently deliver on pay-per-view. And the match card is really great. So I'm excited for that. But again, week-to-week television has been a huge problem for the show. And last night was just a disaster. It was just a debacle. Nothing interesting happened really. A bunch of stuff just, and then a bunch of the key angles that you had. You even had a Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay promo backstage after the match. That kind of they talked about the Tiger Driver. We didn't see that on television. I would have much rather seen that on television than see Chris Jericho yelling into a microphone on commentary for 15 minutes. That didn't need to happen. So, So we'll see what happens with AEW. In terms of SmackDown, exciting night. Tribal Chief, putting my one up, is coming back to SmackDown tomorrow. That should be awesome to see where this Bloodline storyline goes. Be interesting to see where Cody Rhodes goes next, with Randy Orton going to Gunther in the World Heavyweight title at Bash in Berlin. So it'll be interesting to see that direction. It'll be interesting to see what happens with LA Knight. And now that he's the United States champion, obviously you have new tag team champions with the Bloodline holding those. So, SmackDown should be really good tomorrow. You got Nia Jax with the Women's Championship. And again, another thing that I should bring in here that should be in the back of people's minds. Nia has been building herself up as the queen. Queen Nia Jax. Yes, Tiffany Stratton's got that briefcase, but one thing that I failed to mention, there's a certain woman on the roster who has won more women's championships than anybody else and calls herself the queen. I think we're heading really close because Charlotte's getting close to returning from her knee injury that happened at the back half of the year in 2023. I think we're really close to seeing Charlotte Flair and Nia Jax. And yes, the last time they were in the ring, it was ugly. But that's definitely something I'd want to see is Charlotte versus Nia. And then maybe off of that, Charlotte could somehow win the championship or, it leads to Tiffany Stratton cashing in. And that's the way you make your star, as opposed to Tiffany turning babyface, which she's a great heel. So that's just something in the back of my mind for people to think. I'm not saying that it's going to happen right away. Bayley could obviously get her rematch for the women's championship because I'd like to see Bayley not fall into the abyss again after holding the women's championship for like 100 days. I mean, it was a fine reign. I don't think any people are saying that it was terrible, but I think it was a fine reign for what it was. And it was a good highlight of how great Bayley is. So, but yeah, SmackDown should be really exciting tomorrow night in Tulsa. And yeah, we'll see what happens there. I'll have a post show after that, and I'll talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.